Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Crayon Lane Teach. Today's video is going to be all about classroom setup tips. So if you're someone who's brand new to teaching, if you've been teaching for a while, or if you're just looking to change your classroom round a bit, then hopefully you'll find some of these useful. So my first classroom setup tip is to set up everything from a child's eye level. So that means that any sort of writing prompts, numeracy prompts, things that you're wanting them to look at, displays, if you can, try and set them up from the child's eye level. So actually maybe even get down on your knees and go around your classroom on your knees and think about what they can see when they're walking around the classroom. So for example, in my writing area, I don't have anything that's kind of higher than sort of my waist height. So everything is all set up so when the children are standing or sitting, so I kind of have two different levels as well. They can see things like writing prompts, little images and letter formation prompts, all the kind of stuff that you want them to be looking at in your writing area. And the same goes for the whole, all the other areas of your classroom as well. So that's like a really important tip, and it's actually something that I didn't do not until that long ago. So my second classroom setup tip is to do a big clear out. So you might be quite lucky and staying in the same classroom that you were in last year. However, I found that when that happened to me, I just kept a load of stuff that I really should have thrown out. So if you can, again, try and do a massive clear out, really think about things, am I really going to be needing this? Chuck out all the things that are broken, all the things that are ripped, all the sort of really old teaching resources that are maybe out of date, that maybe collected a few years ago or maybe got given to you by a teacher who'd been teaching for a long time and actually maybe not relevant anymore. So be really ruthless and throw out everything that you're not going to use, be truthful, throw out everything that you're not going to need, and you'll actually feel so much better and you'll have so much more space for new things and for new things that you collect and new things that you might be given to you as well. So my next classroom setup tip is to think about a theme or colour scheme that you'd like to use in your classroom. Now I know, depending on your school, some schools might have set colour schemes and might want the whole school to look the same, but if you're quite lucky to choose your own colour scheme, then really think about what suits you as well as your children. So it's quite good to have obviously an idea of what they like, maybe their interests and things like that. You might want to go for a sort of bright rainbow coloured theme, or you might want to keep it more neutral, or even go for sort of more greys, black, white, things like that. The only thing I would say would be to consider about keeping it quite calm. Think about if you've got any children in your classroom who might be overstimulated by overly bright colours and things. But personally in my classroom I've got a bit of a mixture. I've got mostly neutrals, a little bit of black, but I've also got little pops of colour as well, and I found that balance works really well for me, works really well for our kids, but obviously you'll know what works for you. My next classroom setup tip is to not worry or feel pressured into filling up all your display boards right at the beginning of the school year. So obviously it's a good idea to pop up maybe some prompts or learning resources, things that are actually going to help children learn. So for me in my numeracy area, I've got a couple of number lines, 100 square, some sort of shape prompts. In my literacy area, I've got the sounds that we're learning, obviously the alphabet, letter formation, things like that. But it's actually quite a good idea to keep the rest of your display boards empty, and then as children complete work and as they complete little activities and things, fill it up with all the children's work, and it actually gives them a really good sense of ownership of their class, and actually you're really quick in filling them up anyway. So that's my next classroom setup tip. My next classroom setup tip would be to consider having a calming or a breakout space somewhere in your classroom. So this would be really useful for children who find maybe being in a big busy classroom environment quite tricky, or maybe they find learning for long periods of time quite tricky. So it's actually quite a good idea to maybe have a little calming area with maybe some nice books, colouring sheets, some art resources, a little listening station, cushions, things like that. Just a nice calm, relaxing area for the children to take themselves away there if they're finding things tricky in the classroom. So my next classroom setup tip is actually to put some space aside for yourself in your classroom to have your daily resources organised. So have maybe a set of drawers or a teacher trolley or a space in your classroom cupboard if you're lucky enough to have one, and actually have it all sectioned out into the days of the week with all your resources that you're going to need all in the correct days. And this just makes your day-to-day sort of teaching life so much easier, so much more calm. You're not scrambling around looking for that worksheet or looking for that activity that you'd put aside somewhere the other day, and everything's just so much more organised, and it actually just makes your day run so much smoother as well. So my next tip for setting up your classroom is to actually think about asking the children what they would like in their classroom. So maybe at the beginning of the school year, ask them what they think makes a good classroom, ask the kind of things that they enjoy having in their classroom, and they might actually come up with ideas that you've never even thought of. So even things like a kind of a loose parts area, maybe if you've had that in previous years, maybe a construction or maybe a design and technology area, science area, just something a little bit different that you've maybe never thought of before. And so it's always a really good idea to ask the children in your class, and then it gives them a bit of a sense of ownership of their classroom as well. So my last classroom setup tip that I want to talk about is ensuring that all your resources and things that you want children to use on a daily basis are easily accessible to the children. So this might seem like something really, really simple, but I mean, at the very beginning of when I was teaching, I used to have the glue in a cupboard, I used to have the scissors away somewhere else, I used to have paper away somewhere else, and I would be constantly getting the children asking me for scissors and glue and pencils and coloured pencils and things like that. So it's always a really good idea to have all the things that you want children that they're going to be accessing all the time easily accessible to them. Now, some people might put these in pots in the middle of their table or put them in the children's trays if you're lucky enough for each child to have their own kind of set of things. However, what I personally do is I have all the pencils, the glue sticks, the coloured pencils, the scissors, everything that we use in our class, all in sort of a central space, and the children then just go there and help themselves. And I found this really, really helps with independence as well. So they're not wandering around asking you for a pencil, wandering around asking you for a rubber. They know exactly where in the classroom to go to find these things, and it just makes them a lot more independent, and it means as well that you're not wasting sort of learning time, or and they're just basically able to get on with things as well. So that's all my classroom setup tips that I'm going to share with you today. I really, really hope you found them useful. If you'd like to see more teacher related content, then make sure and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.